Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca, and in this week's video, I'm letting my husband choose what colors I use for an illustration. A while back I saw Catfolk do a video where she had her partner pick colors for her illustrations. I really enjoyed the video, and I'll put a link to it in the description, and I thought it'd be fun to do a similar concept with my husband. Arrtx was also super awesome and sent me their 90 set of acrylic paint markers to use. They are sponsoring this video, but all thoughts and opinions are my own. So before we can have my husband pick the colors, I need to create an illustration for him to pick colors for. I wasn't totally sure what to draw because so often my pictures are inspired by colors, but I didn't know what colors I would be using, so I didn't have them to inspire me. So I kind of just started drawing, and you'll see in the footage that I play around with a few different ideas, but then I keep coming back to my first idea. I decided I wanted to draw a super flowy scarf because I drew some random lines, and I liked how they looked. It doesn't really make sense for the scarf to be flowing like this, but I decided I'm not going to care about physics, and I'm just going to have fun with the scarf in an artistic way. This picture is kind of capturing the transition from fall to winter, so the character is wearing more wintry clothes, but there are also still some fall leaves flowing down. So before my hubby can pick the art supplies, I need to swatch them all first. This 90 set is the largest one I have received from Arrtx. I am super happy that the numbers are printed on the bottom of them. In the past, you had to place little stickers on the bottom of them, which wasn't the worst, but this is way more convenient. You do get these stickers to place on the side of the barrels if you want. It is handy to not have to flip the marker over to see which one it is, so I will be placing these onto the barrels. I cut out a piece of paper that fits inside the marker box, and I begin swatching the colors. I write out the code for the marker, swatch it, and then place the sticker on it. Most of the time markers need to be shaken and pumped to be prepped for use, but thankfully this is not required for these markers, so the swatching process didn't take too long. Also, something I forgot to mention is that they have a brush nib, and I always love the nibs of these markers. They are flexible and allow me to color smaller or larger areas. They also just feel really nice. I really like how they feel on the paper. As you can see from my swatch chart, I switched to writing a row of the marker codes and then swatching all those colors. And after I swatched the row, I then put the stickers on. For some reason, this felt faster than doing each of these tasks one at a time. And now that all the markers are swatched, I can have my husband pick the colors. Also, I estimated that if I were picking colors for myself, I would pick around 15 colors. So I gave Josh a range of 10 to 15 colors, but I also told him he could pick more or less if he really wanted to. And I made sure to clarify that this includes shading and highlight colors. So let's go to the footage of him picking colors.
The picture first, or?
Yes, the picture is on the desk, so you can look at it while you pick colors.
This does feel like it's supposed to be fall-like.
That's fair.
But also could be wintry or other.
I will leave you be so that I don't sway your choices.
Let me just set them off to the side.
Yes, you can set them off to the side.
Okay.
Oh, I see. That will be interesting. It does look like a challenge. So here are the colors my husband picked. It was a bit different from what I anticipated. However, there was a part of me that knew he would pick the metallic markers. Also, my husband said he added this green because it was the prettiest of the greens and because he wanted to make things difficult for me. I should have told him he would also need to color a picture with the colors he chose. Maybe I'll do that next time. When I first saw the colors, I was feeling scared. However, after swatching them all in a more organized order, I was feeling a bit better and like I could make the color palette work. The next step was to transfer my sketch onto a clean sheet of paper. At first I was going to use my mixed media paper, but it was actually a bit too small, and instead of reprinting my sketch to the smaller size, I decided to instead just use my hot pressed watercolor paper that's a bit larger. Once my paper was taped in place, I started to trace my sketch with a pink erasable color pencil to the paper. This part isn't very seeable on camera, sadly, but with the power of editing, we can just skip to when it's done. So here it is. Now that I had my sketch transferred, I could start coloring. I decided to start with the skin, and out of the colors I had available to me, I felt that S32 would be the best pick. The other skin tones I had felt a little bit too cold. I liked the warmth of S32. I was a bit nervous about my choice to use hot pressed watercolor paper. I remembered using it in the past with paint markers and liking it. That being said, it is more absorbent, so it kind of soaks up the paint, making it so that I need to do a couple of coats to get a smooth finish. I'm not sure which paper is my favorite to use with paint markers. They all kind of have their own characteristics and behaviors. Overall, I think the markers did very well on this paper. However, on other papers, I don't need to do as many coats. Before adding my second coat to smooth out the skin, I wanted to play around with a technique. I've seen some artists use a fluffy brush to feather out paint from paint markers. When I saw this, I thought it was so cool and would be super helpful. My hope was to feather out the red marker to give the characters some color to their cheeks and around their nose. I was switching back and forth between the two markers and the brush to try to make a smooth blend. I was having a bit of a hard time feathering out the color before it soaked into the paper, but I eventually got it to kind of work. This method probably works a bit better on smoother paper that is less absorbent. But I still got it to work, thankfully. Anyways, I then proceed to add my second coat to the skin. I also play around with adding more blush in a bit. I was hoping that maybe I'd be able to use S40 to add shading. However, it is too close in value to the skin tone, so it doesn't really work for adding shadows. I thought about using S46, however, I felt like it wouldn't give the look that I wanted. So I opted to use C45, and after applying it, I would try to blend out the color a bit with the skin tone. Overall, this worked well and added a bit of interest to the skin. I often like to use purple for shadows because I feel like it looks interesting. To blend out the purple marker, I need to work while it's still wet and use the other marker on top of it. Blending paint markers can be a bit tricky, but if you are willing to let the nib soak in the different colors, you can get a pretty good result. Also, I loved adding the nose blush. It went a bit more smoothly because I already had a couple layers of paint down, so the paint couldn't absorb into the paper as fast. So it was a little bit easier to blend out with a brush. Also, yes, I am using an old makeup brush for this. All of my normal paintbrushes weren't as fluffy and as soft, and so this one was going to work the best. The fluffy brush really allows me to feather things out. For most of my art pieces, I often try to save the eyes for closer to the end. However, I was feeling a little nervous about them this time around, so I decided to go ahead and color them now. When I used paint markers for my Rumi fan art, I didn't use the paint markers for the eyes as well. Instead, I used fine liners, but I felt like that resulted in the eyes feeling out of place. So this time around, I wanted to use the markers for the eyes too, even if it can be a bit harder for me to do the really small details. For the eyes, I mostly used the mixture of purples I had at my disposal. I used C45 to outline the eyes. I am making good use of the fine point of the brush nib to draw the eyelashes and smaller areas. I was using a very light hand for this and was very nervous, but I did try to keep in mind that if I made a mistake, I can most likely paint over it if needed. This is the nice part about working with opaque mediums. You can just kind of paint on top of things. For the lightest part of the eye, I used C42, and it is lighter, but not as light as I was wanting. There wasn't much contrast. So to maybe help lighten the color, I used the light blue and mixed it with the eye color to get the lighter color. I don't know if this would be my first choice, but it gets the job done and the mixture of colors looks kind of neat. Lastly, I used the darkest purple I had to try to add a bit more contrast. My plan was to fill in all of the areas with paint markers, and then I will refine things with fine liners. I was hoping that maybe I could also add some more contrast with the fine liners towards the end. So I'll try to darken the eyes to make them stand out against the skin a little bit more. Next was filling in the scarf. For the scarf colors, I decided to go with a Christmassy color scheme of green and red. It felt like the best way to incorporate the colors without feeling too out of place. My idea is that this character is on the more quiet and reserved side. She often gets mistaken as being very serious. However, she also really loves Christmas, so the moment it's November, she's whipping out the holiday gear, so in this case, her scarf and earmuffs. I actually used these markers last year to paint on Christmas ornaments, and they worked really well for that. So not only can I use them on paper, but they also work well on other surfaces. Arrtx paint markers have been my favorite paint markers to use for quite a while now. Overall, they are pretty affordable and also really nice in quality. I always really like the texture and finish they have. I can get a really smooth result compared to standard acrylic paint. Coloring the scarf was a little bit tedious because I did have to fill in all the different stripes, but it was also fun to color since the colors are so bright and vibrant. They really pop, especially against the more muted colors of the skin and eyes. For the next area I'm coloring, I was really going back and forth on if I wanted to color it, but I decided to go for it. So I'm filling in the background behind the character with blue. Like with the skin, the paper is kind of absorbing the paint, so I need to do multiple coats. It was a large area to fill in, but it didn't take as long as I thought it would. And overall, I think I'm happy I did it. I feel like I like it more than not having the blue. Also, for a softer look, I faded out the lower edge by blending white with the blue. My husband didn't technically give me white to use, but white isn't technically a color, and I didn't use it all that much, so I figured it was okay. I kind of just used it to fix little mistakes and also for blending out the blue. For the earmuffs, I continued with the green and red. For the band part, I used the silver metallic marker. Like I said, I had a feeling that Josh would pick the metallic markers, and I was kind of dreading that. It's not that I don't like metallic markers, we all know I love shiny things. It's just that they aren't always the easiest to incorporate. However, I feel like I was able to make them work without them sticking out too badly. When I first saw the colors that Josh picked, something I was questioning a lot was what colors I would use for the hair. And out of all the colors, the black marker was speaking to me the most because it would offer some contrast between the skin and the hair. However, I also thought it might be a bit too harsh. Thankfully, I did have an idea. A lot of times for black hair, artists will use blue as the highlight color. So I took the dark blue marker and used that to mix with the black marker. This worked a lot better than I thought it would. Because the black is so pigmented, it really mixes with the blue marker, so I was able to get a color that is close to the black, but also makes the black feel less harsh. I think the hair is actually my favorite part about this picture. I feel like it turned out pretty cool. I did have to be very purposeful with how I used the markers. I couldn't just use the black and blue willy-nilly, or else it would end up looking like a mess. For most of the hair, I would apply the black, and then use the blue to fade out the black. Once the blue started to turn more blue, I would then apply black to the other end of the hair and then fade it out towards the middle. I definitely would have never colored the hair in this way normally, but I think that's the fun part about these kind of challenges. It makes you get creative and do things in a way that you wouldn't usually do. For the coloring of the coat, I thought I'd try giving you all an up-close shot. Hopefully it's not too bad. I was holding the camera with my left hand while doing this. I should probably get a small tripod to hold my camera so I can do these kind of shots more easily. Also, I kind of love this character. The idea of a more serious character absolutely loving Christmas really amuses me. I was thinking that maybe I could have this character be Esther and Samson's niece, because she kind of looks like she'd be related to them. She has a similar skin tone and eye color to Esther, so maybe Esther has an older brother and this is his daughter. I probably shouldn't make the Clear Star Cafe Crew's family dynamic even more confusing than it already is, and I do not need more original characters, but I feel like she would be such a cute fit with the rest of the crew, and she probably wouldn't be there all the time, she would just come and visit sometimes. So what do you all think I should name her? I want to give her a name that has an association to Christmas. My top names at the moment are Holly, Natalie, Carol, Mary, and Noelle. Let me hear your suggestions, and I'll try to make a poll on my channel to make it so that you can all vote for her name. I noticed that from all of the colors Josh gave me, I hadn't used the 2 other browns yet, so I am now using them for the leaves. I figured this would be a good color for the leaves since they probably are super dead at this point, since it's the later part of fall that's nearly winter. It's not like the prettiest of color for leaves, but I feel like it works, and I had to use these 2 browns somewhere. Also, if you're looking to get into acrylic paint markers or looking to expand your collection, I definitely recommend checking out this set and other Arrtx paint markers. Like I said, they're my favorite paint markers to use, and I've been using them for a while now. They are a really fun and more casual way to use paint that isn't super messy, although I do still get a bit messy sometimes, but I'm kind of just a messy artist. But if you want to check out these paint markers, there are links in the description and pinned comment. I highly recommend checking them out. For the final details, I'm tightening everything up with the fine liners. I'm filling in all of the white gaps and giving areas a cleaner edge. This part was tedious, but also very satisfying. It's a small thing that brings the whole piece together, and like I mentioned earlier, I used the fine liners to give some more contrast to the eyes. I had to do some playing around with which colors I used for the eyes, but overall I was able to add a bit more detail and contrast, and I feel like they end up looking pretty nice. During this part, I was dealing with a lot of glare from my lights, so I actually had to turn them off so that I could see the picture better. I do love my lights, they work very well, but they can also cause a lot of glare, and a lot of times you don't see the glare on camera because of the angle, but with the way I'm sitting, I can see all the glare. This footage isn't the greatest of quality, so let's skip ahead to when the picture is finished. And so here's the picture. I was really nervous with the colors Josh gave me at first, but I feel like I made them work. Now let's see what he thinks. These are the colors you gave me.
Oh, yes, that's the colors Dad gave Mom. You can take part in this too, bud.
With those colors.
Oh.
I do this.
Ooh, that's really cool. You did a good job.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see. You can see the little gold accents and silver there, and the headband and all the buttons, and the red and greens do mix well. Looks nice. You did a good job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much to my wonderful husband for participating in this video with me. Using colors that I didn't choose was a fun challenge and made me get creative with what I had to work with. It also inspired a new character for the Clear Star Cafe crew. I'm excited to name her, so be on the lookout for the poll. And I'm also really excited to draw her more. Also, thank you again Arrtx for sending me the markers. I really loved using them. Like I said, if you want to check them out, there are links in the pinned comment and description down below. Well, that is all for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!